Hey everybody, we are officially alive. I'm so excited to kick off our second mentor workshop of the semester. If you're watching the recording of this, please feel free to fast forward by 5, 6 minutes. We will get started in 5 to 6 minutes. If you are watching this live, welcome. I'm excited and grateful to have you all here. We will get started at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 on the East Coast, 4 on the West Coast, and 5 in Mountain Time. So Jalena's going to send out this YouTube link to everybody. So then y'all have it. Cool. Yep, that's there. And cool. So Jolene has sent them out. Um, if you're watching, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. We'll get started in about 5 minutes. All righty. We got a lot to cover in this workshop tonight. A lot of fun things to cover. I know it's spring break for a lot of people. Is anybody going anywhere fun for spring break? Hey, Marie Centeno, welcome, welcome. Hey, Angel, Angelica, sorry. Welcome, welcome. We'll get started in a few minutes. I always like to double check my audio. I one time almost like started a mentor workshop and realized my microphone was on mute. That was always fun and awkward. Um, Not this time, but in the past. We'll get started in a few minutes. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, where you're tuning in from. Okay, good. I'm glad I said your name right, Angelica. I didn't know. So here's the thing. I'm looking at your handle, and I didn't know if it was like, you know, yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Angelica was like in hindsight, I didn't know if A was like your name was Angelic A. Brooks, and then I realized you're Angelica Brooks. And sometimes I'm slow, and yeah. Hey, Ops by Jay. Oh yeah, you did that in a Zoom call today where you were on mute and you didn't realize you were on mute and just started talking and no one responded and you're like, what is going on? Yeah, no, I can relate to that. Okay. Where is everyone tuning in from? Does anybody have like who, I don't know. Does anybody like March Madness? Does anybody have any fun sports teams? My Indiana Hoosiers are bad. But at least we won the national championship for football, but for basketball, we are atrocious. And so, anybody have a team that they're rooting for upcoming March Madness? Or is anybody even following it? I don't know. Oh, Oxford J, you reach out to your mentee twice, no response yet. Good to know. Email Jolene, support at ambitionemotion.com. She can do another follow-up, maybe send a text to your mentee, connect, all that sort of stuff. Northern California, Alabama. Alabama's a good basketball team. Um, yeah, they got a legitimate chance this year, I think. Any other teams that you follow for the March Madness? Post in the comments. We're gonna get started in like 30 seconds. I just want to make sure Jolene sent out that email for everybody. I think she has. Yeah, it's gone out. All righty. Well, it is officially 6 o'clock here in Austin, Texas, 7 o'clock on the East Coast, 4 on the West, and 5 in Mountain Time. I'm excited to kick off the second mentor workshop of the semester. So, what we are going to cover today, this workshop is going to be around 10, maybe 15 minutes long. Um, You should have connected with your mentee by now. If not, please email support at ambition-in-motion.com. Jolene can take care of you, make sure that you and your mentee get connected. Today, what we're going to cover, how to set proper expectations for your mentor relationship, the best way to handle any issues with mentees. Maybe they didn't show up on time. Maybe you didn't feel like they came prepared. Maybe they had noise in the background and you felt like it was distracting, or maybe they asked to reschedule on short notice. And then we're going to talk about how to help students with key issues they face on a regular basis, like finding balance and identifying a vision. But before we dive into that, I want to cover the 3 keys to success. I touched on this in our very first workshop: strategy, story, state. Essentially, physically, what is your state? Are you coming into this mentor relationship in a state conducive to being a good mentor, or are you not? And so ultimately, how do we get ourselves pumped up, ready to go, having a good, just a good demeanor around how we present ourselves in front of our mentee? The next is a story. What's a story we tell ourselves for why we will or will not be successful? We tell ourselves a negative story, we're likely going to manifest a negative outcome. We tell ourselves a positive story, we're likely to manifest a positive outcome. Much more likely, let's put it that way. And then strategy. What are the strategies we can deploy to help our mentee with whatever they're working through? So maybe asking great questions, maybe doing role playing like mock interviews, maybe reviewing their resume, maybe making introductions. There's a variety of things that you can do to help. But ultimately, those are the strategies. But it starts with your state and it starts with your story first. So, how to set proper expectations. So the first call should be all about your mentee. This is not your time to share war stories. The best mentors ask the best questions and they focus on their mentee. So the first call should be all about your mentee. Learn what is going on in their world. Ask them questions. I'm a big fan of asking them to share with you their story starting with kindergarten, then what their dream job is, and then where they like to be in 5 years. And the reason why I love that question is because when you ask them to tell your when you ask a mentee to tell you their story, typically they start with college, like where they're currently at right now, and they skip over a lot of their past. And I think their past is what has helped influence who they are today. So I would start with tell me your story starting with kindergarten, then tell me your dream job. It gets them going to the past and then it gets them way into the future. And then I like to ask, where do you want to be in 5 years? The reason why that's such a great question is because it gets your mentee thinking about what could be a realistic, middle step for me to achieve my dream job. Then the next thing I like to do is once you've learned this information, I like to ask the mentee what they believe is one thing that they can work on between now and your next call that'll help them get closer to accomplishing their goals. I like to start getting tangible. I get it. They've got an exam coming up. They've got a this coming up. They got a that coming up. I'm a firm believer there's no such thing as a lack of resources, just a lack of resourcefulness. And so oftentimes students create these walls in front of them that deter them from going out and reaching out. They have LinkedIn. They have their professors. They've got so many resources that they can deploy. And most career paths are not handed to people on a silver platter. It typically requires some some due diligence, some follow up, some outside of the box thinking, and that's as a mentor one of the things you can help them with. Now, remember what that one thing is. Because the next time you meet, you should ask for a status update on that thing. So if they said they would commit to connecting with 10 people on LinkedIn, follow up with them when you have your next conversation. Ask them how was connecting with those 10 people on LinkedIn. That can be a great, assessment to you is like, cool, are they going to follow through on what their commitments are? Or are they not? Now, adjacent to setting proper expectations is handling issues. So, what if a student shows up late? Maybe you felt like they didn't come prepared, or maybe they had noise in the background that you felt like was distracting, or maybe they asked to reschedule on short notice, or anything that could have frustrated you. The first step I suggest is to not get mad at them. I know that may sound counterintuitive. You might think to yourself, well, how are they supposed to have, understand negative repercussions for their actions? Here's my tip. The first step, don't get mad at them or tell them what they did was wrong. That's the easiest way to ruin your mentor relationship because you've tarnished the trust that you've got between you and your mentee. I would go through the call like nothing happened. I take the time to listen, I take the time to ask questions, and then by the end of the call, you say this: I really enjoyed this first call. Did you? They will likely say yes because you took the time to listen, you took the time to ask great questions, all that sort of stuff. Then you say, I feel like I can offer you a lot as your mentor, but for our future conversations, there are some things that I would like from you. First, if we say that we're going to meet at 10, then my expectation is that we start at 10. I noticed that you came at 10:10. You were 10 minutes late. It's okay. Like I get it. It's our first meeting and that sort of stuff. But just from an expectation setting standpoint, is it reasonable for me to accept the expectation that when we say we're going to meet at 3 or 4 or 10 or 9 or whatever time we set, that I can count on you to be there on time for our next meeting? By handling that in that way, you've built rapport first, you've built trust first, and you've shown them value. And then they're like, yeah, you know what, 100%, my bad. I showed up 5, 10 minutes late. I should not have done that. I will respect your time in the future, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation. Great, fantastic. That is such a great way to handle that because if you come into that and you're like, oh, I can't believe you show up 5, 10 minutes late. You're just disrespecting my time. Do you know who I am? Do you know how many people I've done or how much money I've made or how much business I've done or whatever things are? Like if all of a sudden you're immediately focused on all of your accomplishments and why they're wasting your time, you're going to ruin the mentor relationship. So, I just want to stress the importance of taking the time to be a great mentor for your mentee before clarifying your expectations for them. Make sense? Yeah, you're much more likely to have a productive and quality mentorship with your mentee. And then the last thing I want to cover here is I love to help students with identifying a vision and finding balance. There are 5 questions I love to help students when it comes to identifying a vision. This is a really great set of questions that you can ask to just really get down to the core. So the first question I like to ask is, if this situation were to work out in the best way possible, what would it be? I love asking this question because it gets your student focused on what the best possible outcome could be. The second question I like to ask is, what is one thing that seems impossible, but with a little luck and a lot of work, just might be within reach? I love that asking that question because it gets your mentee thinking about, okay, what might be within my grasp? What might be possible? What might be something I could do? And this is when you ask that sort of question, you as a mentor are seeing something in your mentee that maybe they don't quite see in themselves, and you're pushing them to new heights that they maybe have never achieved before. The third question I like to ask is, what will you commit to doing today, this week, this month? And I love asking that question because it gets you to some tangible steps that they can take towards actually achieving their vision. The fourth question I like to ask is, who do you know that thinks big? I love asking that question because it gives them a role model, a paradigm for someone who's thinking big. Because ultimately, for us to achieve our dream job and career, we got to have someone that we can emulate. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in their career field. It could be just someone who thinks big in general. And then the fifth question I like to ask is, what in your life keeps you thinking small? This allows us to acknowledge the detractors, the things that are holding us back from actually achieving our dream jobs and dream goals and career paths that we're trying to achieve. I love asking that question because it allows us to acknowledge it. Once we can acknowledge it, we can overcome it. But if we can't acknowledge it, we put ourselves in a pretty big hole. So let's talk about balance for a second. I love asking students 7 questions to help them focus on and find balance. So the first question I like to ask is, What do you want to say yes to in your life? What do you want to say yes to in your life? And that's a great question because it gets them focused on what do they want to attract? What do they want to bring more of in their life? The second question I like to ask is what do you need to say no to? This is something where, just similar to the set of questions before, it allows them to acknowledge the things that they need to eradicate. There are some things, some people that are just not serving them that they need to say no to or significantly reduce in their life. The third question I like to ask is when do you feel pulled off center? This allows you to identify when they're feeling stretched thin, when they feel like they might, uh, you know, fall back into bad habits. The fourth question I like to ask is what contributes to this feeling? This is a good question to ask because what it does is it gets your mentee thinking like, okay, I feel overwhelmed when I have a bunch of assignments due at the exact same time, and I've got this going on, and I've got that going on, and all these other things. And then we can acknowledge, like, what do we need to eradicate so then you can feel more calm during the stressful times? The fifth question I like to ask is when do you feel most grounded in life? And I love asking this question because it helps your mentee identify like what is the real activity, what is the work that just gives them juice, makes them feel good about themselves. The sixth question I like to ask is what in your life takes away from what might be possible for you? I like asking this question because it allows them to further acknowledge what is taking away from what might be possible. And then the last question I like to ask is what in your life adds to who you are? So those are the seven questions I love to ask a mentee when it comes to helping them identify and find balance. Because once you ask, what in your life adds to who you are, you're able to help them identify what do I need to attract more of in my life and what do I need to retract and remove from my life. And so by doing that, you're going to help your student really find balance and just acknowledge what is going to give them balance in their life. So anyways, that's what I wanted to cover in this workshop today. Does anybody have any questions? Nitra. So yeah, you feel like you could use a mentor as well, and you're trying to figure out how you could proceed with it. Yeah, I mean, you can join the alumni mentee program next semester, just FYI. Um, Good evening. Oh, my name is John. Very cool. Welcome, John. Um, yeah, Jay, Ops by Jay, Jay is absolutely right. Um, Yeah, and Nitra, you can get a mentor in this higher ed program for next semester. So everyone can get a mentor. It's not just restricted to students. We have a program called our Alumni Mentee Program, which is great, where we talk about workshops on how to transition into management, how to know when the right time is to switch jobs, how to know when the right time it is to pursue additional education, how to know when the right time is to, really how to handle conflict in the workplace. So, anywho. Yeah, Nitra, if you're interested next semester, you should join the Alumni Mentee program. Well, sweet. Well, it looks like I don't have any questions from everybody. I am excited to continue this. I'm so grateful to have you all as mentors. I'm just going to look up when is the next mentor workshop. The next mentor workshop is right there, April 8th from 6 to 7 Central Time. So essentially in a month, I will see you all. So good luck with your first few mentor conversations with your mentee. If you have any questions about anything at all, please email support@ambitioninmotion.com. Otherwise, I'll see y'all in a month. We have some really amazing students. Y'all are amazing mentors. I'm so grateful to be working with you, and I'm so excited to see how these conversations transpire over the course of the next 30 days. Anyways, thanks for your time, everybody.